We didn't beg when the Galactic Concordant exiled us. We didn't fire a single shot. When they ordered humanity to retreat to the Sol system and rot in quarantine, they expected tears and desperation. Instead, we smiled, packed our ships, and shut the door behind us. They haven't slept since. The high pavilion of the Concordant was a masterclass in psychological intimidation. Suspended in the atmosphere of a gas giant, the floating amphitheater was designed to make any species standing in its center feel microscopic. The floors were hived from the fused glass of dead worlds, and the tiered seating above held the delegates of 300 star systems. Standing at the absolute center of this terrifying grandeur was Ambassador Christian Vance. He adjusted the cuffs of his simple, charcoal-gray suit, a stark contrast to the bioluminescent robes and armored carapaces of the alien counselors looming above him. "The charges have been verified. The consensus reached," boomed the voice of High Arbiter Xylox, a serpentine entity whose vocal cords vibrated through the chamber's acoustic dampeners. "Humanity has willfully violated the stagnation accords. You have aggressively terraformed Class 4 death worlds. You have weaponized the gravitational anomalies in the Perseus arm. And worst of all, you have refused to submit your technological advancements to the Concordant for regulation." Christian kept his gaze level. "With respect, Arbiter, humanity's technological heritage was built on the sweat and blood of our own people. When the engineers at CERN stabilized the first antimatter containment field in 2045, you weren't there. When the SpaceX-Boeing coalition lost 300 brave astronauts mapping the Orion slipstreams, the Concordant offered no aid. We survived by our own merit. We will not hand over the keys to our warp drives just because you fear our pace." A murmur of outrage rippled through the amphitheater. The Concordant was old, millions of years old. They maintained peace through aggressive mediocrity. Any species that advanced too quickly was systematically broken down, their technologies confiscated, their populations culled under the guise of galactic balance. Humanity had been the wild card. In less than 3 centuries, we had gone from launching crude chemical rockets to folding space. We were a threat simply because we didn't know how to stop pushing boundaries. "Your arrogance is precisely why this verdict is absolute," Xylox hissed, his massive head lowering toward the podium. "You view the universe as raw material for your industry. You are a plague of ambition. Therefore, the Concordant has voted unanimously. Humanity is hereby banished." The word echoed off the glass walls. "Banished? You are stripped of all territorial claims beyond your origin system," the Arbiter continued, his tone dripping with condescension. "You have 30 orbital cycles to recall your fleets, your colonists, and your infrastructure back to the Sol system. Once your quarantine is complete, a concordant blockade of 10,000 dreadnoughts will surround your star. Any human vessel attempting to breach the quarantine line will be reduced to atomic ash. You will live in the cradle that birthed you, and you will eventually die there, isolated and forgotten." Christian didn't flinch. He didn't drop to his knees. He didn't threaten them with war. Instead, he reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a sleek titanium data pad, and set it on the podium. "I have already transmitted our formal acceptance of the terms," Christian said, his voice terrifyingly calm. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the Arbiter seemed taken aback, his serpentine coils shifting uneasily. "You accept?" "We accept," Christian repeated, looking up into the sea of alien faces. "We will withdraw. Every last human, every last ship. We will return to Sol. But I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Arbiter. Christian leaned forward, resting his hands on the podium. The gentle diplomatic facade melted away, revealing the cold, predatory edge of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain. "You aren't locking us in," Christian said softly, though the microphones caught every syllable. "We are locking you out." Before the Arbiter could demand an explanation, Christian turned his back on the highest authority in the galaxy and walked out of the chamber. The sound of his leather shoes clicking against the glass floor was the only noise in the pavilion. The retreat had begun. Back on Earth, the news of the banishment didn't spark riots. It sparked a terrifying, synchronized mobilization. The United Earth Directorate had known this day was coming for decades. We had studied the Concordant. We knew their methodology. We knew they eventually euthanized any species that outgrew its designated terrarium. General Isaac Richter, commander of the United Soul Defense Forces, stood in the war room beneath the Rocky Mountains. The massive holographic display table in front of him showed the logistical nightmare of bringing 3 trillion humans home. "The extraction fleets are moving," reported Dr. Anna Forrester, the lead physicist borrowed from the General Dynamics Advanced Projects Division. "We're packing civilians into superfreighters like sardines. The mining colonies in the Cygnus sector have already rigged their infrastructure to blow. We're not leaving the Concordant so much as a loose bolt." "Timeline?" Richter asked, his eyes locked on the shifting blue icons of the human fleets. "We will have everyone inside the Oort cloud boundary in 28 days, Anna replied. "It's tight. The engines on the Lockheed Class 4 transports are redlining, but they'll hold. The real question is, will the Aegis Array be ready?" Richter looked at Anna. The Aegis Array. It was the most highly classified project in human history, funded by black budgets that dwarfed the GDP of entire planets. For 50 years, humanity had been secretly building a megastructure just inside the Oort cloud, a spherical network of gravity-tethered reality anchors. "It has to be," Richter said grimly, "because on day 30, the Concordant Armada is going to show up to lock the door, and we need to make sure our door is already shut." For 28 days, the galaxy witnessed the greatest migration in the history of the universe. Thousands of human colonies went dark overnight. Massive industrial foundries, orbital shipyards, and agricultural ring worlds were stripped to the studs, packed into cargo leviathans, and ferried back to Sol. The Concordant watched with smug satisfaction. Their observer probes broadcasted the human retreat across the galaxy as a warning to other species. "Look at the humans," the broadcasts implied. "Look at how they scurry back to their dirt ball when commanded." Alien commanders parked their dreadnoughts just outside the Sol System's Oort cloud, watching the endless stream of human ships limping home. They mocked the ragged formations, the overloaded freighters, the sheer desperation of the exodus. They thought we were retreating in defeat. They didn't realize we were consolidating our mass. On the 29th day, the final human ship crossed the threshold. It was a battered scout frigate, its hull scarred from micrometeorite impacts, but it crossed the imaginary quarantine line. The moment it did, the Concordant Armada moved in. 10,000 alien dreadnoughts, sleek and terrifying, formed a massive steel ring around the Sol System. They powered up their plasma batteries, aiming them inward. The High Arbiter's flagship, a floating cathedral of death, positioned itself directly in front of Earth's orbital plane. Arbiter Xylox opened a broad-spectrum communication channel, broadcasting directly to every screen and radio receiver on Earth. "Humans," Xylox sneered. "Your quarantine is now absolute. Your borders are sealed by the might of the Concordant. Any vessel that breaches this line will be destroyed. Look up at your stars, humanity. Take a long, hard look, because you will never walk among them again. Deep inside the Cheyenne Mountain complex, General Richter listened to the broadcast with a cold smile. He turned to Dr. Forrester, who was standing at the primary control console of the Aegis array. Her hands hovered over the authorization terminal. "Is the array fully synced?" Richter asked. "All 3 million anchors are online," Anna confirmed, her voice trembling slightly with a mix of exhaustion and adrenaline. "Tachyon fields are overlapping. The dimensional fold is prepped. General, if we do this, there is no undo button. We are severing the Sol system from the standard space-time continuum. We will literally drop off the map. To the rest of the universe, it will look like we were never here." "Good," Richter said. "Let them have their stagnant galaxy. We have our own destiny to forge. Shut the door, Doctor." Anna engaged the sequence. Across the outer edge of the Sol system, hidden in the icy debris of the Oort cloud, 3 million reality anchors ignited. They didn't produce light. They produced a distortion, a localized manipulation of physics that human scientists had theorized ever since the early days of the Fermilab particle collisions, but had never dared to execute on a macro scale. From the bridge of his flagship, Arbiter Xylox watched the sensors with growing confusion. "Arbiter," a sensor technician chirped, his mandibles clicking nervously. "I am reading a massive gravimetric spike. It is originating from the human system. It is impossible." "What are they doing?" Xylox demanded, staring out the main viewport. "Are they attempting to weaponize their star?" "No, Arbiter. They are not weaponizing it. They are folding it." Before Xylox's eyes, the fabric of space began to warp. A shimmering, iridescent wall of energy erupted along the exact perimeter of the quarantine line the Concordant had drawn. But the energy wasn't pointing outward like a shield. It was folding inward. The stars behind the Sol system began to bend, their light refracting violently as the human system wrapped itself in a localized spatial bubble. "Fire!" Xylox screamed in a sudden, blind panic. "Fire all batteries! Destroy them!" 10,000 dreadnoughts unleashed hell. Plasma torpedoes, antimatter beams, and kinetic slugs rained down upon the shimmering barrier. But they didn't impact. They didn't explode. The moment the concordant weapons touched the Aegis array's field, they simply ceased to exist in that dimension. They were redirected into the void of slip space, harmlessly bleeding off into nothingness. Then the true horror of what humanity had done dawned on the alien armada. The shimmering wall expanded for a fraction of a second, and then, like a television snapping off, it collapsed inward into a microscopic singularity and vanished. Xylox stared out the viewport. His jaw went slack. The Sol system was gone. The sun, the planets, the asteroids, the human fleets, all of it. Where the cradle of humanity had been mere seconds ago, there was only empty black space. The background stars, previously obscured by the dust of the solar system, now shone through perfectly clear. Humanity hadn't just built a wall. They had excised their entire solar system from the observable universe. They had taken their ball and gone to a pocket dimension of their own making. The Concordant had wanted to lock humanity in a cage. Instead, humanity had turned their solar system into an impenetrable, unreachable vault, leaving the galaxy behind. "Sensors," Xylox whispered, his voice shaking. "Find them. Trace the dimensional wake." "There is no wake, Arbiter," the technician replied, his voice filled with absolute dread. There is no signature. They haven't just hidden. They've rewritten the local physics. They are gone. On the other side of the Aegis barrier, Earth's sky had changed forever. The familiar constellations were gone, replaced by a swirling, auroral sea of cosmic radiation bouncing off the inside of the dimensional fold. It was a sky of endless, shifting colors. Christian Vance stood on the balcony of his estate, sipping a glass of bourbon, looking up at the new heavens. His comlink buzzed. It was General Richter. "The fold is stable, Ambassador," Richter reported. "The Aegis gate is locked. The Concordant is officially cut off from us." Christian smiled, taking a slow sip of his drink. "Excellent work, General. Let the aliens rot in their stagnation. We have a solar system to re-engineer, and no one to tell us we're moving too fast." Humanity was finally alone, and for the first time in centuries, we were truly free to become monsters of our own design. Time inside the Aegis fold did not behave like time in the standard universe. Cut off from the cosmic microwave background and the gravitational pull of the galactic core, the Sol system became a closed-loop terrarium of accelerated evolution. For the first decade, the sky was a psychological burden. The swirling, iridescent tachyon storms that replaced the stars were a constant reminder of our self-imposed exile. But humanity has never been a species to dwell on closed doors when there are windows left to shatter. Unfettered by the Concordant's stagnation accords, the United Earth Directorate unleashed the full, terrifying potential of human industry. We didn't just advance, we metamorphosed. Without the fear of alien sanctions, the corporate titans of Earth merged into massive techno-conglomerates. Asteroid mining, Blue Origin, and Caterpillar dismantled the asteroid belt, processing billions of tons of raw iron, titanium, and silicates in autonomous orbital foundries. Energy production. Westinghouse and the remnants of the ITER fusion project cracked zero-point energy, making Dyson sphere mechanics obsolete before we even finished building one. Predictive intelligence. Palantir integrated with newly unbound quantum mainframes, creating AI so profound it could map probability vectors centuries into the future. Biological engineering. CRISPR-Vertex coalitions eradicated disease, halting cellular degradation entirely. Death became an opt-in experience. By the 50th year of isolation, Ambassador Christian Vance, now kept in perpetual middle age through aggressive telomere therapies, stood on the observation deck of the Daedalus station, orbiting a severely depleted Jupiter. The gas giant was being siphoned. Massive atmospheric scoops, designed by Northrop Grumman, plunged into the swirling storms, extracting helium-3 to fuel the construction of the UED's new fleet. "They still think we're dead, don't they?" asked General Isaac Richter, his consciousness now housed in a cybernetic chassis constructed from liquid memory polymers. The human form had become a canvas, and Richter had chosen durability over aesthetics. "They think we are suffocating in the dark," Christian replied, watching a 300-mile-long super-dreadnought slide out of the Jovian shipyards. It was a spearhead of black matter, devoid of visible exhaust ports or traditional thrusters. It moved via spatial manipulation, essentially falling forward through self-generated gravity wells. "They have no idea that the dark is where we see the clearest." Dr. Anna Forrester, operating from a neural link immersion tank on Earth, projected her holographic avatar beside them. "The Aegis array is holding perfectly, but the Palantir predictive models are flashing red, General. The galaxy outside is experiencing extreme localized entropy." Christian turned from the window. "Entropy?" The Concordant has policed the galaxy into absolute stillness. What could possibly cause entropy? A chaotic variable. Anna's avatar shimmered. Something from outside the galactic rim. The telemetry we passively absorb through the fold's static shielding suggests massive gravitational shears in the Perseus arm. Planets are vanishing, Christian. Not cloaked like us. Consumed. The Concordant, in their millions of years of enforcing mediocrity, had engineered a galaxy entirely incapable of handling a real threat. They had outlawed rapid military innovation. They had executed species that developed dreadnought-class weaponry. They had created a herd of fat, complacent sheep, completely unequipped for the arrival of wolves. And a wolf had come. It took another 70 years for the crisis to reach the borders of where Sol used to be. Inside the fold, humanity had completed its great work. Every planet in the system, from the scorched rocks of Mercury to the icy plains of Pluto, had been weaponized, shielded, and networked. Earth itself was enveloped in a planetary defense grid, so dense it looked like a shimmering pearl. We were no longer a civilization. We were a localized apex event. Then, on the 124th year of the lockout, the Aegis Array's control room alarms shattered the silence. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, Anna Forrester, now a synthesized consciousness interwoven with the Array's primary mainframe, spoke through the compound's PA system. "We are receiving a signal. It's bleeding through the tachyon barrier. Someone is knocking." Richter's synthetic eyes narrowed. "Is it an attack?" "No," Anna replied, the sound of raw audio static filling the room. "It's a distress beacon. It's broadcasting on every known emergency frequency, blasting blindly into the empty space where the Concordant thinks we used to be." Christian Vance walked into the command center, his tailored suit just as immaculate as the day he faced the High Arbiter. "Patch it through, Doctor." The static cleared, replaced by a voice that was ragged, terrified, and painfully familiar. It was Arbiter Xylox. The serpentine alien sounded centuries older, his voice stripped of all its former arrogance and dripping with sheer desperation. "If any remnant of humanity hears this, if your ghosts still linger in the void of this sector, we beg you. The Starn Swarm has breached the core worlds. Our weapons are useless. The fleets are ashes. They are eating the suns. If you exist, if you survived, help us. We were wrong. We were so." The transmission cut out in a screech of tearing metal and hard vacuum. Silence hung heavy in the command center. Richter looked at Christian, his metallic face unreadable. "They banished us to die, Christian. They pointed guns at our children and told us to rot in a cage. My tactical recommendation is we let the swarm eat them. Then we clean up the mess." Christian stepped up to the holographic display, looking at the blinking red dot indicating the origin of the distress signal, just outside their dimensional pocket. "No, Isaac," Christian said softly, a predatory smile slowly forming on his face. "If we let them die, they'll never know how thoroughly they failed. They banished a desperate species of upstarts. It's time they meet what they created." Christian turned to the command staff. "Dr. Forrester, drop the Aegis gate. General Richter, sound the trumpets. Let's show them what a real monster looks like." Outside the pocket dimension, the space formerly occupied by the Sol system was a graveyard. The remnants of the Concordant Armada, the very same dreadnoughts that had locked humanity away, were floating in burning, ruined pieces. Arbiter Xylox, bleeding from ruptured atmospheric pressure suits, dragged himself across the tilted bridge of his flagship. The Starn swarm, an extragalactic biological horror resembling miles-long tendrils of hungry shadow, had ripped through the concordant lines in minutes. The aliens' plasma batteries had bounced harmlessly off the swarm's organic armor. The stagnation accords had left the concordant wielding archaic energy weapons against an evolving, adaptive nightmare. Through the cracked viewport, Xylox watched as a massive swarm tendril, dwarfing a small moon, curled toward his flagship, ready to snap the vessel's spine. He closed his eyes, waiting for the cold embrace of the void. He had sent the distress signal out of pure, illogical panic. He knew the humans were gone. He had watched them vanish. But the end didn't come. Instead, a sound impossible in the vacuum of space resonated through the hull of his dying ship, a deep, seismic crack that vibrated through the very fabric of reality. Xylox forced his eyes open. The empty void of space where the Sol system used to be was peeling open. It didn't shimmer into existence. It violently ruptured outward like a wound, a blinding flash of gold and crimson tachyon radiation spilled into the standard universe, pushing the encroaching swarm tendrils back with a wave of localized gravity. And then, Sol returned. But it was not the yellow star and quaint planets Xylox remembered. The star was encased in a latticework of geometric megastructures, pulsing with the harvested energy of a captive god. The planets were ringed with defensive battle stations that made the Concordant's high pavilion look like a child's toy. From the tearing edges of the dimensional fold, the human fleet emerged. There were no ragged freighters. There were no struggling chemical rockets. The vessels of the United Earth Directorate poured into real space in absolute, terrifying silence. They were colossal, angular monoliths of dark matter and stabilized singularity cores, constructed by Lockheed Martin and Boeing engineers who had spent a century answering to no laws of physics but their own. "By the ancestors," Xylox gasped, his mandibles trembling as the tactical sensors on his ruined console struggled to comprehend the power readings of the human ships. They weren't just off the charts. They were rewriting the charts. The Starn swarm, sensing this massive new energy source, abandoned the crippled Concordant ships and surged toward the human fleet. Billions of organic attack drones poured from the swarm's mother tendrils, a tide of flesh and teeth designed to overwhelm and consume. On the bridge of the UED command carrier, Oppenheimer, General Richter watched the swarm approach on the tactical overlay. "Target locks acquired, General," a synthetic officer reported. "They are utilizing organic kinetic shielding. Primitive." "Arm the Raytheon zero-point disruptors," Richter ordered calmly. "Grid pattern Alpha. Erase them." The human ships did not fire glowing bolts of plasma. They didn't rely on cinematic explosions. They used the fundamental laws of the universe as a scalpel. Invisible beams of highly concentrated spatial distortion leaped from the dreadnoughts. Where these beams intersected with the Starn swarm, the biological horrors simply unraveled. The molecular bonds holding the swarm together were instantaneously commanded to cease functioning. Millions of miles of terrifying alien biomass dissolved into harmless, subatomic dust in a matter of seconds. Xylox watched in awe and sheer terror. The swarm, the unstoppable apocalypse that had consumed 300 star systems in a month, was being swatted away like a minor nuisance. The mother tendril, realizing its impending destruction, attempted to fold into slip space to escape. "They are attempting to run, sir," the human officer noted. "Denied," Richter replied, Engage gravity anchors. From the human ships, massive gravimetric tethers slammed into real space around the swarm, artificially increasing the mass of the surrounding vacuum. The swarm's slip space engines stalled and shattered. They were trapped. Within exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds, the greatest existential threat the galaxy had ever faced was completely, surgically eradicated. Not a single human ship had taken a scratch. Silence returned to the sector. The remaining concordant survivors floated in their ruined hulks, staring at the mechanical leviathans that now surrounded them. A broad-spectrum transmission hijacked every functioning audio system in the surviving alien fleet. On the cracked monitors of Xylox's flagship, Ambassador Christian Vance appeared. He looked exactly as he had 124 years ago, calm, impeccably dressed, and radiating a cold, absolute authority. "High Arbiter Xylox," Christian's voice echoed through the bridge, crystal clear despite the heavy damage to the alien comms. "It has been a long time. You look terrible." "You," Xylox wheezed, coughing up violet blood. "You survived." "We thrived," Christian corrected him gently. "You ordered us back to our cradle, Arbiter. But you forgot one fundamental rule of human nature. You don't lock us in a room and expect us to cry. You lock us in a room, and we will dismantle the walls to build better weapons." "The Concordant, our worlds are burning," Xylox pleaded, dropping the last shred of his species' ancient pride. "We need your help. We need your technology." "Oh, you will have it," Christian smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "We are stepping out of the dark, Arbiter. The isolation is over. We will send our fleets to your burning worlds. We will exterminate the swarm. We will rebuild your shattered cities with our foundries. We will heal your sick with our medicines." Xylox felt a wave of unbelievable relief. You will forgive us? You will show us mercy?" "Mercy?" Christian laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Do not confuse management with mercy, Arbiter. We are not saving the Concordant. We are foreclosing on it." The holographic projection shifted, displaying a new galactic treaty, stamped with the insignia of the United Earth Directorate. "The stagnation accords are abolished," Christian's voice boomed with finality. "From this moment forward, your territories, your resources, and your remaining fleets belong to humanity. You feared we would disrupt the balance of the galaxy. You were right. We are the balance now. We are the architects of the new age. Submit unconditionally, or we will turn our ships around and let the swarm finish its meal." Xylox looked out at the floating dust of the destroyed swarm, then back at the godlike dreadnoughts of the human fleet. There was no choice. There never had been. Not since the day they told humanity to sit still. With a trembling claw, Xylox reached up and activated his flagship's ultimate surrender beacon, a bright, humiliating flare of white light that cascaded across the ruined fleet. On the bridge of the Oppenheimer, General Richter watched the white flare ignite. "Surrender confirmed, Ambassador. The galaxy is ours." Christian Vance took a slow sip from his crystal glass of bourbon, looking out at the endless expanse of stars that had finally been returned to them. "It always was, General," Christian whispered. "They just kept it warm for us. Humanity didn't just survive the dark. We weaponized it. If you loved this deep dive into humanity's triumphant and terrifying return from the void, smash that like button to support the channel. Want more epic sci-fi stories and HFY tales where humans rewrite the rules of the universe? Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a transmission. drop a comment below. What would you do if you had 100 years of isolation to build the ultimate fleet? Share this video with a fellow sci-fi fan and stay stellar.